So San Diego Comic-Con just concluded. I guess it was last weekend. We got a few little tidbits of. I feel like this was kind of a less jam-packed than it normally is in terms of announcements and stuff. I know a lot of times you get some Star Wars stuff at this, which I know. Just I was looking at it today, and I know that the D23 Expo that they always do is coming next weekend. So I think we'll see most of their announcements there. Plus, they're not doing a Star Wars celebration this year for some reason. So I know that's probably where we're going to get anything at all Star Wars. But we did get a little bit, and we're going to talk about that in this video. And specifically, we're going to talk about Marvel, and we're going to talk about the new Rings of Power trailer and kind of our expectations for that second season. So, yeah, it's kind of a crazy, unexpected announcement on the Marvel side of things because I think there's been a lack of enthusiasm generally across the board since probably, I don't know, Spider-Man No Way Home or Guardians Volume 3, maybe. So I think with, the new Deadpool and Wolverine movie coming out this past weekend, which we will do a review on, not tonight, but in an upcoming video, because all of us have not seen it yet. We're kind of hoping and maybe not really expecting much from these sort of announcements. So to get what we got was pretty interesting. And I had someone ask me about it the other day, like, what do you think? And if you don't know what we're talking about, San Diego Comic-Con, I'm not sure if it was a Friday night or Saturday night of the convention, but it was announced that the Russo brothers would be returning to do, I believe, 2 Avengers films, and that Robert Downey Jr. is returning not as Iron Man, but as Doctor Doom. So that was kind of they did a whole big reveal and everything. That was pretty dramatic. And but I think it's suffice it to say everybody was a little surprised because I think to say I would have been surprised for him to come back, I would have said no. But if you'd asked me if I was surprised for him to come back as a different character, I would have said, yeah, I'm shocked because Marvel doesn't typically do this. They don't typically bring back actors to play in other movies that have already played a character previously. So I don't know. I'm just going to open the floor a little bit. We're going to talk a little bit about what were y'all's impressions on that, and what do you kind of feel like going forward that this means for the state of the MCU?
I think they are bringing him back as Tony Stark. I think there's an arc there. There's some comic stories. I'm not in depth on the comics or anything, but there's some comic stories of Victor Von Doom and Tony Stark, like being college roommates, switching personalities in one arc or one comic series and stuff like that. So I think there's a way that Tony Stark could be your Doctor Doom. I hope that's what they do. I hope they don't just make, you know what I mean? Like, I hope they don't just make Robert Downey Jr. our Iron Man, or Tony Stark, and our Victor Von Doom. I think they're smarter than that. I hope.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they're gonna
be careful.
bring in the multiverse and stuff. I'm sure it's probably gonna be. I mean, my guess would be he's a variant. Obviously, he's not obviously the actual Tony Stark that died, but I feel like it's honestly kind of a cash grab. They're just doing this because obviously stuff is plummeting for Marvel and Disney in general. So they're like, well, let's bring our top A-list actor back that basically made us all this money, and let's bring him back and get everyone hyped up for it and try to bring in some money. Do I think it's a terrible idea? I mean, no. I mean, he's a great actor. I love Rob Downey Jr. So, I mean, I think he'll kill the role probably, but I don't know if this was technically what should have happened. I mean, I know there's a lot of rumors about Cillian Murphy apparently playing Doctor Doom, which personally I would have really liked that. I really like Cillian Murphy. I think he's a great actor, and I think he probably would have killed the role of Doctor Doom as well. I think that's honestly, if Tony Stark actually is a variant, he's not going to be the actual Doctor Doom of the universe. They're going to bring in another actor. I really hope they do bring in Cillian Murphy because, again, I think that would be a great idea. But again, I just think it's more or less just a cash grab. I mean, they're not making any money at the movie theaters really with MCU and anything Disney. So they're probably just trying to bring in money at this point. So get the fans excited.
Well, there's a couple of thoughts for me. One, there's a way to do this similar to what Drew said, where like you could do it. I was thinking about how to introduce him, and there would be a way where, with the multiverse theory, where Tony Stark comes into the Avenger timeline, right? And tricks the Avengers into thinking that he's Iron Man, but he's actually Doctor Doom. And I think that would be a really cool thing to see, kind of like that, him coming in as like, because Doctor Doom's not a guy that is just like, oh, I'm Doctor Doom. Like he's gonna come in and kind of like try to mess with people and things like that. And so I would be interested to see that. But then I have a question: is he going to be in the Fantastic Four movie that they're, supposed to be filming?
I think they've already. Yeah, I figure that's where they're going to lead. Haven't they?
I think they'll lead into him starting then.
Yeah, I feel like it'd probably be at the end because didn't they already confirm? Why am I blanking on it? The main villain though, is it what is his name? Big giant dude. Galactus? Is it Galactus? Okay, that's what I thought it was. I know they showed him obviously in the trailer, but I have a feeling he'll probably be kind of like more the main villain, I feel like. Or maybe he would be more towards the end of it, I guess, maybe kind of hinting at him. I don't know. But I wouldn't be surprised if Doctor Doom does show up, maybe as Tony Stark, Robert Downey Jr.'s Doctor Doom show up at the end of Fantastic Four to kind of hint him, and maybe like an end credit scene to kind of get him like rolling, to premiere in a movie. But I don't think he would probably be a part of the whole movie, I wouldn't think, at least.
And so is Doctor Doom replacing Kang?
That's what I'm pretty sure is going on. So, yes, I believe so.
Interesting.
And so I'm gonna play devil's advocate a little bit here because y'all know that I enjoy being the pessimist, and it's not so much that as it's more like a compare and contrast sort of thing. So you think back to the Infinity Saga, they started that story arc basically with Iron Man, the original Iron Man, 2008, and they built up to Thanos over a span of nearly 20 movies, and then they finally have his big reveal in Infinity War, which I think was the 22nd movie. So maybe they through about 2021 movies they set him up, and then he has his big reveal in Infinity War, and in terms of him actually being the villain in the movie, and there was so much build up, the setup, and then the payoff of that of Endgame, and then you come around to kind of where we're at now with this scenario where we all know, Kang was the focal point. He was going to be the next, Kang Dynasty was the next Avengers movie, as well as Secret Wars and some other things. But he was the focal point. He was the Thanos of this period of the MCU, and so when you come to the point where they've got to shift gears because of all his legal issues, and they had to fire him because of all that, and you look at the state of the continuity of the storyline within in the MCU right now, I'm really wondering how they work all this in together in just 2 years to get a coherent build-up and sort of a satisfying build-up to lead to a payoff, so that they can, because that's a very short amount of time to set up Doctor Doom as the main villain. And right now, Deadpool and Wolverine's the only MCU movie this year. So they have next year, or whatever they come out with, and then they have the first Avengers movie coming in 2026. So how do they get something coherent storyline wise that's going to build him up enough to make it as nice of a payoff as it was in the Infinity Saga?
You got to do it with the TV shows, I think, because I think that's where we were talking a little bit before. So most of the TV shows, I'm not going to say all, most of the TV shows have not been as bad as the movies have been. So we started with an Iron Man basically origin story and a Captain America origin story. Well, that they can use the TV shows for that. They don't have to do a whole other movie. Which I get, they spend just as much money on the TV shows as they do the movie, but you can almost kind of slide the TV shows in between the movies to kind of speed. I would say speed it up a little bit. I don't think you're obviously not going to get as much of a payoff as you would for Infinity War.
Do we know what movies actually are supposed to be coming out next year? Or not movies, sorry, shows.
I
The
mean,
MCU? Is there like?
so
They
I
have
know
a show.
as I said, the Agatha show is coming out,
Okay.
and then what was the other one that I saw a trailer for? I know Captain America's coming out next year.
Yeah.
This looks great.
Yeah.
And in terms of other movies, maybe Fantastic Four will be done for a Christmas release.
Okay.
So
we only have one Marvel show then?
Well, no, it says Agatha comes out September, and then Eyes of Wakanda is set to expand in 2024.
Oh.
And then
Interesting. Wait, that's supposed to be a show or a movie, actually? Do we know yet?
It's a spin-off of movies, so I think it's a show.
Okay.
And then you have Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, Peter Parker's origin story. I think that's a cartoon. Daredevil is supposed to come in March 2025.
Yeah, I'm skeptical of that. Based on all the reshoot rumors I've heard, I kind of doubt we get that when it's
Ironheart.
I'm not excited for that. I could care less about that personally.
You get the Thunderbolts in 2025 May.
Yeah,
that'll be interesting. That could be a good lead in too.
Yeah, it's possible.
And then they have another season, I think, of What If. So here's the thing about what Marvel has done and kind of the can of worms that they've opened up is, one, you talk about it took 22 movies to build up Thanos, right? I think the first sight of Thanos was that when was that?
I think it was at the end of the first Avengers movie.
Yeah. But he was mentioned in Guardians of the Galaxy too, I believe.
Which came after the first.
Did
Avengers
it?
movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
But what the TV shows, they didn't have the TV shows back when these movies were being made. So they had to build them up over these 22 movies or however much it was. But like you said, with the TV shows, they film faster and they can change the storylines to adapt to kind of what they want to mold it into. And with Loki and bringing into the multiverse, as well as Doctor Strange, they can introduce characters however fast or slow they want to. And I think that they bring in Doom because he's a well-known villain that a lot of people want to see and a lot of people like. And you pair that with Robert Downey Jr., and it doesn't matter if they didn't take 22 films to build this up. It's Robert Downey Jr., it's Doctor Doom. People are going to go see it. And I think that's kind of what their thought process was.
Like I said, kind of like a cash grab almost.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not saying you have to have 22 movies. I'm just saying, how do you get something that, because at this point,
they got to have a little bit of build up for us to
you're not to the state that Star Wars is, where like just nobody's watching it anymore, but you're to the point where a lot of MCU fans have just kind of tuned out because it's just not, the quality's not there anymore. And so how do you get people to care again, I think is a better question.
Well, as I don't know if anybody else has watched Deadpool and Wolverine, but as one of the, I know Johnny and Ethan hadn't, but one of the only one of the ones that have watched it, we're taking steps in the right direction. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. You need it. Johnny, I know you're indifferent about watching it, but you need to go see, it's one of the, I think it's the best Marvel movie since No Way Home. Is that
better than
Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3? Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yes.
Yeah.
Really? Okay. See, I thought Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 was honestly better than No Way Home.
It was it was solid.
Really good.
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah.
Loved it. I'm telling you.
The movie's really, really good.
Okay.
And it puts a lot of the doubts that you guys are talking about to bed in my mind about kind of the direction that you think Marvel's going to go. If you
in a way that only Deadpool can. Yes.
Yeah. And I don't want to give spoilers because like you said, we'll talk about it later, but hi Sam. It's a good movie and you need to go see it.
Top 4.
Like all of Marvel?
All of Marvel.
All of them. That's
Top four.
a pretty big like statement.
I'm skeptical there.
That's like
I'm skeptical of that one.
wow.
Also, do we
And,
know?
you know, that's-
sorry,
Go ahead.
Captain
No, go
America, Captain America: Brave New World. Is that come? I think that's coming out too.
That's
That's
next
March,
year.
next
yeah.
year.
March
Yeah.
20 or is it February 25?
It'll be
March.
whatever their February, their first release, and then I imagine you said Thunderbolts was coming May, and I hope that Fantastic Four is ready to come by like late
June.
next year.
Well,
I thought Fantastic Four was in May.
I don't know.
Like May of next year? Or-
Yeah, but they haven't even started filming.
No, they
it.
haven't even started filming. There's no way it comes out in May next year. I don't think they would be able to finish it by then. Because I think they
It'll
just
be
started.
late if it comes at all. It'll be like
Yeah.
Christmas time.
Yeah, I agree with Johnny
Or
on
it'll
that.
be early 2026.
I mean,
But
I
that-
hope they do because like if they rush it, that's not good.
This says July.
It says July
Yeah.
for Fantastic Four.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll
July
see.
25th.
but they
We'll
haven't
see.
even started filming it yet. The actors said that they started filming this week.
Yeah, I remember. I think.
I mean,
it
they
was,
can be ready by July if they're filming right now. Because we just ended July
About
now,
12
so
months.
that's almost an entire year.
Yeah.
As long as they don't have a lot of reshoots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's for me. It's like I think a step in the right direction is to go to your Fantastic Fours, your X-Men's, your lean on, which unfortunately in situations like Chadwick Boseman's character, which as much as I love him as an actor, I was of the opinion that they should have recast him because not having a Black Panther that was T'Challa in the second one, just there's no movie at that point. And so it's unfortunate that they weren't able to lean on characters like him. But I think this is a point where your X-Men's, your Fantastic Four, you sign Tom Holland to some more Spider-Man movies. You have to lean on the characters that people really want to come see. Your Deadpools, and you have to really get people to realize, like, hey, we're not focusing on these random characters anymore, like your Agathas and your Echoes and your Captain Marvels and all these that, I mean, they might be okay characters, but people just don't really care that much because they're even in the comic world, they're sort of secondary characters that people don't really read, So if they do that and they start making the movies just quality movies again instead of just pumping stuff out, which I think has been the issue, is not the fact that there's superhero fatigue, it's that it's just not good, But you get stuff like Guardians Volume 3, like what y'all said about the new Deadpool movie, like they can still make quality movies. It's just, don't make the movie if it's not going to be the best that you can make it. And if they don't do that with the Fantastic Fours, the Captain Americas, the Thunderbolts and things like that, then people are not going to care when a new Avengers movie rolls around because there's really no build up to it. And so that's kind of where I'm at with it. It's like I'm at the prove it to me point in the MCU before I truly start caring again. And I think that's and it can't just be one movie. It can't just be Deadpool and Wolverine. It has to be a continuous pattern of we're getting back to how we used to do things.
Well,
And that's
they
kind of
bring back the
where
Russo
I'm
brothers,
at.
so I think that is
And that's
step in
a
the right
positive.
direction. So
Yeah, that's a
it's very
positive thing because everything they've made. I mean, they made the second and third Captain America movies, and they made the final two Avengers movies, which are all great movies. So that's a positive, and it's a step in the right direction. But you still have to prove that you're gonna follow through with those steps. And so I think the next point now for them is, can we make something else off the back of Deadpool and Wolverine that is just as good? And I was encouraged by the Brave New World trailer because it reminded me of the Winter Soldier when I watched it, which is my favorite Marvel standalone movie. And so that's encouraging that it reminded me of that sort of espionage, the behind the the spy sort of aspect that one had. But no, I think if you can follow that up with something good, then you're 2 for 2, and you just keep moving on from there. But
Well,
I'm just not going to believe it till I see it at this point.
I think I don't want to say everybody agrees with me and Christian, but I think Marvel has got their nod because as of today, I read somewhere earlier that that Deadpool and Wolverine just blew the rated R box office record out of the water by I think they're up to 600 million plus
Wow.
today.
Jeez.
It's not
Wow.
even been out a week yet.
Yeah, that's nuts.
It was the 6th highest grossing box office film of all time.
Wow.
On opening weekend, I'm guessing.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
but
crazy.
isn't it crazy that we're talking about this where if you would have told me after Endgame that in a few years we'd be talking about how Marvel has tanked and needs to get their mojo back, right? I would have said you're crazy because you're talking about trust and bringing in, viewership back, but Marvel was peak at Endgame. It was any movie that they put out, any show that they put out, it was good. And then now we're talking about it they seem kind of lost. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Well, I think it just doesn't help that, again, more towards the end of Marvel, it was kind of hard to beat and do better than Infinity War and Endgame. They set the bar so high to the point where I think everyone was expecting that level of quality out of movies and shows, and we just didn't get it. And so a lot of fans were not
And
happy
it's
about
not that it has to be that good, because when you have that kind of team up in Endgame, it's you can't top that. But
No.
go back to your roots, go back to your Iron Mans, go back to your Guardians Volume 1, go back to your Winter Soldiers, and ground it in a character-driven movie that is well written, well acted, and that has an emotional weight to it. It's that's all they used to do, and then you build off of that into your team up movies. But what happened was there was such a steep drop off in terms of the quality of their standalone movies to where, and also they were focusing on characters that people really just didn't care about.
I don't really know about either.
I would say
Shang-Chi,
that-
I guarantee you a lot of people didn't really know who Shang-Chi was until
That was the biggest thing, I think. They were focusing on niche characters, trying to bring the niche characters to the. I mean,
fill the roles of
went
Tony
back,
Stark, stuff like that.
right? If they would have went back after Endgame and focused on your Black Panther, or obviously I know what happened, but or now now they're kind of reversing course. I would say they're focusing on Deadpool. They're bringing back Wolverine, even after Hugh Jackman said he was done. I feel like that's where we've gotten back to.
I'm so interested with how they're going to bring in X-Men. And I think that there's two things that Marvel needs to do. One, they finally need to make a good Fantastic Four movie because there's so many villains and so many storylines that you can explore from Fantastic Four that just never get explored because all of their movies have been, not spectacular. And then the second thing is like you said, Hugh Jackman is back as the Wolverine for Deadpool. Does he stay around and continue? I think so. I don't know, but I think exploring the X-Men world and bringing that into the MCU is going to pay so many dividends for Marvel.
I agree. I think that's where you could ground your whatever phase 6 on is your X-Men and your Fantastic Four.
Well, and honestly, we talk about them not making a good Fantastic Four movie, and we had this discussion the other day. I can't remember who it was, but the actor who played Mr. Fantastic in the original Fantastic Four movies, I actually really liked that casting decision better than Pedro Pascal. But you're to the point where it's you have what you have, whether you like Pedro Pascal. I like him in some things, but he's in so much lately that it's could you not find anybody else to play that character? But the other cast that they got to play the Fantastic Four, great choices. And so it's it's encouraging, and now you've got to get the right person to direct the film, which I think they've already announced that. I can't remember who it is that's doing it. But it's one of those things where, like y'all said, the blueprint's there for success, and it's like they're teeing the ball up for you, and so now it's about essentially doing what Marvel hasn't done, what people like Lucasfilm haven't done lately, and it's hiring the right people to get the job done. And so getting the Russo brothers in there is a step in the right direction. But then for your solo films, you have to do the same thing. You have to hire competent writers. You have to hire your Jon Favreau's, your James Gunn's, and your top directors that can come in and make something of those, and that care about those characters in those worlds that they're from. And I think that's the next thing, because there's been so many interviews they've done of some of these TV shows like the She-Hulks and things like that, where the writers openly said, like, we don't read comic books, we don't know anything about these characters.
Well, I think that's going to be like the make it or break it for Fantastic Four, though, because I mean, like, they have the actors to like. I mean, a lot of great actors in it. So, like, at this point, like, it's going to be the writing. I think that's going to be make or break for it. Like, if they don't have a good writer, or if they don't have, like, a good plot and all of that, like, it's going to be obviously not great. But, like, I think the acting they got down. Like, they got, what is it, Joseph Quinn playing Human Torch?
Vanessa Kirby. What's the guy's name from The Bear?
Yeah, I can't remember his name either, but he's another great actor. And you're hating on Pedro Pascal a little bit, but, like, I personally think...
I'm not hating on him. I'm just saying he's been in a lot. And I don't know how much. To me, I don't know if he has the range as an actor to play the sort of brainiac that Mr. Fantastic is. He can prove me wrong.
I think he will. Honestly, I think Pedro Pascal's range is outstanding.
I think I think he's a good actor. I like him. I liked him in The Last of Us. I liked him in
Game of Thrones is another good one. He did a really good job as Oberyn. Personally, I think I really liked his character before they killed him. But.
Matt Shackman's the director for Fantastic Four. He actually did. He's done like a couple. He was the director for a couple episodes of Game of Thrones.
He's the WandaVision director.
What episodes of Game of Thrones are we talking about though? Like season 7, 8? Like,
season
hopefully before season 8 and 7. But
he's got a couple episodes of The Boys on there.
All right. Well, I mean, he has a good track record then. As long as it's before season 7, Game of Thrones. Then
he directed The Spoils of War and Eastwatch.
Okay.
The 5th episode of the 7th season and the 4th episode of the 7th season.
Okay. I mean,
but he also was the director of Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Oh, that's another good show.
So
it sounds like he's got a lot of
very promising
as a director. He's done some comedy. He's done some darker stuff.
He was a child actor too. He acted when he was young.
I mean, that's a good thing then. Do we know who's writing that? Do they have a writer yet? Like listed for doing
writers are Peter Cameron, Josh Friedman, and Jeff Kaplan.
Okay. What did they do? Like, what other movies and shows?
Peter Cameron wrote for WandaVision, Moon Knight.
Okay.
Also did.
Josh Friedman did Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes.
Okay.
And then Jeff Kaplan did. Wow, his is kind of short.
Some Terminator. Josh Friedman also did some Terminators.
Okay.
Which ones? There's a big variety.
He did the 2008 Terminator and the Sarah Connor Chronicles and Terminator Dark Fate.
Okay, so newer ones.
The bad ones, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, 2008 wasn't terrible. I think that was probably better than the newer ones, personally.
You mean Terminator Salvation?
Yeah, I'm guessing that's what you're talking about, right? I think that came out in 08.
That one's all right.
Yeah, I don't think it was terrible. It wasn't, like, amazing by any means, but...
I heard Dark Fate was pretty bad, though.
Well, I mean, like, I guess the writers aren't terrible. They have decent track records, so, I mean...
Well, so Peter Cameron is doing the screenplay. So he's the one that's, putting it together for the screen. And so if you liked WandaVision and you liked Moon Knight, then you can see that that's probably going to be the style that the Fantastic Four is going to go to. And it's also set in the 1960s.
Yeah.
So
should be interesting, actually. I wouldn't say excited. I mean, I guess I'm excited for that, honestly. Kind of want to see a 1960s like type vibe. I'm here for it.
And I watched an interview, and they said that they're trying to bring it back to the way the original comic was written.
Okay.
So it's going to be a different take on Fantastic Four than the previous two that we've seen. I feel like it's going to be similar to like the Captain America First Avenger. You know how they kind of introduced him after all of the Marvel stuff had already kind of started.
Yeah.
And kind of going back a little bit. So.
Okay.
Well,
No, after watching Deadpool 3 and what came out in Comic-Con, or SD23, not Comic-Con, but I don't want to say I'm excited because I'm not quite there yet, but the hope is somewhat rekindled, I guess you could say.
I'm still begging for a standalone Hulk movie, but that'll never happen.
Well, didn't they hint at World War Hulk? I thought
They did, but
yeah. So I mean, like that could be. I mean, I'm not sure if it's gonna be a movie or a show, but I mean, I'm kind of excited for that. The World War Hulk, like that's gonna be. If they do it right, that should be really good. So.
Well, here's to hoping that all goes well, because it's been a bit of a bumpy ride the last few years. And that we're going to briefly shift over just a second and talk about another troubled production that had a big trailer release at San Diego Comic-Con, and that's The Rings of Power Season 2. And this, whereas the MCU had a lot of momentum and then lost it, the Rings of Power never really had any, and it needs to gain some. And so we're kind of to the point of, after 3 episodes of the first season, they had lost 60-something% of their audience, and it was the most expensive TV show ever made. And they really, like, the numbers just weren't there. The excitement wasn't there. People just quit watching, or they didn't care altogether. And this is one of the biggest movie franchises / franchises in general of all time. And so when we look ahead to this next season, my question, or just a setup for this discussion, was going to be, is, unlike Marvel, where they had something that they can go back to as a positive, what do you do if you're the Rings of Power when you never had it? And people, I don't know if there's many people coming back to see more. They brought in a new guy, a new showrunner, but they kept the other 2 showrunners there to work on it. And I'll be honest, after watching the new trailer, I didn't see a lot different in the trailer from what season 1 was. And so, I'm curious to whether y'all think this will be any better, and will anybody care if it is?
Well, starters, I think they didn't they get to write. I think they got new writers altogether for season 2, unless I'm wrong. But I don't remember.
I think you're
the
right.
same writers. So I mean, hopefully that's a step in the right direction, because the writing was terrible for season 1. I mean, it was all over the place. So I mean, hopefully that's a step in the right direction for them. But like with how bad season 1 was, I don't think anyone's really like excited, or like, I don't think anyone's gonna really tune in compared to like.
Yeah, I don't know that anybody's paying attention.
No, not at all. I mean, with how bad season 1 was, I just don't think season 2 is going to be good viewership wise, because they just probably don't have an audience for it now.
But I didn't even know that there was a season 2 coming out until Johnny texted me and he said, "Did you see the trailer?" And I said, "No, I didn't see the trailer. I didn't even know it was." I'm part of the 60% that stopped watching after 3 episodes. And I think the issue with the show that I had was the pacing was just so bad.
Horrendous.
It was like if you're gonna come in and introduce like Tolkien and like these type of like ideologies, like it really needs to like hit hard at the beginning, and then you pace the way that Tolkien normally paces in the movies, right? And that's not what happened. It was just like from the start, it's just like, we're just gonna bore you with nonsense, and then like I said, I didn't watch after the third episode, so maybe I go back and try to power through the first season, and because I'm a really big Lord of the Rings fan, but and try to get to the second season. But it just wasn't my cup of tea in my opinion.
Well, it was very predictable too. Like I don't think they did a very good job with like keeping Sauron's like identity like I don't know, just like secret, I guess. Like, and I think it was like after like the fourth episode, I kind of had an idea who it was already, and I think a lot of people did too. Like, it just, I don't know, they just didn't do a good job. Like, trying to, I guess, build up like for the season finale to like find out who Sauron is, find out, you know, like just a bunch of stuff. Just.
And the thing that the movies have going for it, even the Hobbit movies, is as poor as they were at times. They had a book. They had a book to go by. And when it comes to the Rings of Power, they didn't have the rights to the Silmarillion, which is the time period that took place in. And so when you don't have that, all you can lean on is the quality of your writing and the way it's directed. And like Christian was saying, it's like it's not interesting. You know, it's boring a lot of the times, and it's so slow, and it takes forever to get to the point that everyone knows it's going to be at. Like you said, the plot twists are you can see them coming a mile away, and so when everybody knows where it's going, you have to make them want to stick around for the journey. And it's like most people, it wasn't worth sticking around for after 3 episodes, and so myself included, I was going to quit after 3, and a friend convinced me to keep watching, which I regret that decision. But it's one of those things where, like all of you, I love Lord of the Rings. I grew up watching the movies. I eventually got to read the books. You know, read The Hobbit, saw the Hobbit movies, all of them when they came out in theaters. And so I think a lot of us were excited, but they got caught up in a lot of political correctness, a lot of what people would call virtue signaling in leading up to the first season. They were playing some political games with it instead of really focusing on the world itself and the lore and respecting that and making something good. And so when you've destroyed most of your audience, we can safely say at least 60-something% of them, you know, at this point, the only thing you can do is bring people in who can write a coherent and engaging script that makes you want to come back and actually sit through it. And I think based on the trailer, I'm not encouraged by what I saw. It reminded me a lot of the first season. I was hoping to see like a drastic change in the trailer to where it's like, oh, they completely shifted gears here. And I just didn't see that. To me, it was the same kind of writing, the same kind of dialogue. They're obviously, you can tell there's some ways they're trying to make it more like it's supposed to be, like Elrond was wearing his armor and he was fighting in a battle, and which is how he was supposed to be originally. And but I personally, my opinion is this show is doomed. I don't think there's anywhere to bring a lot of those fans back, because as we learned real fast with Lord of the Rings, their fans don't mess around, and they were boycotting it before it even came out, and it didn't get any better after it came out. So I don't think there's any hope personally. I'll at least try to watch the first few episodes of the next season to see if anything gets better. But I am not hopeful that that's the case, because they just have so little to work with. They don't have a lot going for them, and you got to have like a really engaging, faster paced story that has the intrigue and the emotional depth to it, the character development that you have to keep people locked in. Because I just don't think you're bringing the 60-something% of those people back doing anywhere near what you did last season. I don't think there's any way that happens.
So larger question for you guys. You know, obviously, I think you guys have previously talked about Star Wars and the Star Wars franchise. Now we're talking about Lord of the Rings and that franchise. We've discussed ad nauseum Marvel franchises. And there's a common theme with all of these franchises where, you do something good, then it's no longer good because you're just trying to cash grab or, do something that goes against kind of the script that works. As a franchise, how do you guys see like a direction that like for Star Wars, like which way, how are they going to get people back? How is Lord of the Rings going to get people back? What's Marvel going to do? Like, what do you guys want to see, like in a general capacity for those franchises to kind of get back to maybe either childhood, how we saw it when we were kids, or, for Marvel a few years ago?
I mean, I think it's kind of what Johnny talked about a little bit. You got to get back to what works. Like, I know that's a kind of broad, like.
We'll elaborate on that. Yeah.
Yeah, but like, Star Wars, like, what is the essence of Star Wars? Like, that's what you got to get back to. I think we're going off just to tell whatever story we want, and it's not even a Star Wars. Like, the Acolyte is not a Star Wars story. It's just a story.
And not a very good one. That's the problem.
Right.
I'm not trying to bash. It's like, it's one of those things where who cares what universe you're set in if your story's crap? Like, honestly, it's one of those things where we asked that question when we were doing our review. It's like, if this did not have a Star Wars label on it, would anybody watch it? No. Nobody would watch it because it was that bad, just from a writing perspective and a character perspective and a dialogue perspective. It's like, and so for me, it's like, you've already got blueprints for the success. I mean, look at for Marvel, it's easy. You know what works. It's like you stay true to the essence of the comics. Guardians, all the Guardians movies do that. I mean, Guardians 3 was able to do that. But I think the key that I've noticed more than anything is because we know Kevin Feige is capable of producing, being a good overseer because he did it for so long with success. Now, he had other guys in there helping him, but that are no longer there. And then you've had successes in Lucasfilm since Disney took over. And then you look at Lord of the Rings and you've had successes there. So to me, the most obvious solution, and you can put your finger on this in all three of these franchises, is that all of them got competent people to write and direct their projects. Star Wars, for example, all the best things in Star Wars since Disney took over have been either written and directed by Tony Gilroy or written and directed by Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. So when you look at what you have to do, you look at those and go, why was Rogue One and Andor successful? Because Tony Gilroy is an excellent writer and director. Mm-hmm. Okay. Why was the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian successful? Because Jon Favreau is a great director and Dave Filoni knows Star Wars. Okay. So now Dave Filoni obviously doesn't need to be doing one on his own, because you look at Ahsoka and you see, okay, he may know Star Wars, but he can't direct live action. And then, so you have to put the right people in the right positions. Dave Filoni's great at the lore of Star Wars. He may not be the best director for live action, and that's okay. Tony Gilroy is really good at writing a complex story and complex characters, but maybe he's not the best for a more blockbuster style Star Wars movie, like a Rise of Skywalker or whatever. It's the same when you go to Marvel, where it's like, okay, like I said before, where's your James Gunns? Where's your Jon Favreau's? Where's your Russo brothers? You have to get people who understand how to write and direct competent movies. And with Lord of the Rings, Peter Jackson's got historically a track record of doing that. And when you bring in 2 guys who all they've done is work under J.J. Abrams, uncredited on a few projects, they've never directed anything on their own, it's like, what do you expect to happen? And I think it's as simple as that. You just have to get the right people in there, and then you have to have a vision that is coherent enough for those people to follow. And I think Kevin Feige was able to do that. I think for a while with the Mandoverse stuff, they were able to do that until they sort of branched off into other things. And then with Lord of the Rings, you just have to get people in there that understand the material and also respect it enough to want to do justice. Because there's plenty of people out there who can write fantasy. I mean, the Game of Thrones guys were able to adapt those books to a series for most of it, of the run. And then, like we said, Peter Jackson's done good things with Lord of the Rings, and so there's people out there to do it. It's just that we're getting these random directors like the woman that's doing the Ray movie that, like, all her credits are on documentaries, and it's like, is she really equipped to do a blockbuster Star Wars movie when she's done like live documentaries? And she may be great a director, but it's like, it's things. I think it really is as simple as that. And then you have to make projects that people care about, like your X-Men's, your Fantastic Fours, your don't do the Acolyte, do an Old Republic something, do things that people want to see. And so it's a combination of those two things, is the competency of the people making your product, and then all the stuff we're making, things that people actually want to consume. And from my point of view, that's really as simple as it is.
I mean, I think they could, for starters, one thing that would make Star Wars, and I would say Marvel in general, a lot better would be getting rid of Kathleen Kennedy. I think that would be a big big thing. Get rid of her. I think that would probably make a lot of the shows and movies and all that
out of
a lot better.
You teed it up.
Also, I don't know what they like, the hiring of like the directors in general, like especially for like Acolyte. When you look at I can't remember her name is what is
Leslie
Headland? Yeah, if you look at her track record, all of her movies, like star rating wise, all that type of stuff, are usually like below a 6 or less. Like, and she doesn't have anything notable that was like good. It's like
the only one I heard that people like was Russian Doll, and I don't even know how involved she was in that.
Honestly, I didn't even know that was a movie. Like,
it's a show. It's a TV show.
A show? Oh, it's a show. Okay, yeah. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Like, but they're just not getting.
I haven't seen it. I've just heard people say it's good. So.
Yeah. But again, I just get rid of Kathleen Kennedy, and then try to get like some actual writers and directors that have decent track records, that like don't have like Russian dolls and that's it. Like, it just that's really all I gotta say.
Just hire Tony Gilroy to write all of your scripts.
Well, that, and like I don't know how like much like Peter Jackson is involved in Lord of the Rings. I don't think he's involved at all really now, especially with Rings of Power. I don't think he's involved at all with Rings of Power.
He's involved in the new Gollum movie, I know.
Okay. So, and that's a great thing. Like, I think that's another thing that, like, same with like Star Wars, they veered off of. Like, George Lucas isn't really that involved in any Star Wars things now, and like
they don't want him to be.
Well, and that's just dumb, because he's literally the one that created it all, and who we loved, as you did a great job with like everything. Set the foundation and set this all up.
My understanding is Kathleen Kennedy, I don't think she wants him anywhere near it, to be honest.
Then get rid of Kathleen Kennedy and bring in George Lucas again.
John Favreau and Dave Filoni have brought him in behind the scenes on some of their shoots for like The Mandalorian and stuff. And I think they're about the only guys that'll actually talk to him. I don't think the executives there at Lucasfilm Disney want him anywhere near it, but that's to their detriment, like we've said. But
it baffles me why you wouldn't want the person that created and set the foundation for this not even like remotely involved in it, though. Like,
from an ego standpoint, they want the praise of saying we did something good with Star Wars.
Well, they aren't doing anything good for Star Wars, so like they got to think of something else now. Like, like, again, bring George Lucas back, just something. Like, they just.
Well, I think that, Johnny, you said the most important thing, which is kind of what I wanted someone to say as the answer, which is vision, right? With Marvel, what they did so well is they interwove stories in every single movie, to the point where, and I said this before we started recording, where like even in shows that I wasn't interested in or movies I wasn't interested in, I needed to watch those movies to make sure that I didn't miss anything for an upcoming either Captain America movie or a Avengers movie or things like that. With Star Wars, like Disney has that same type of, or should have that same type of mindset where we're going to make people have to watch these shows in order to understand the movies, or to maybe not understand the movies, but get certain aspects of the movies that you may miss if you don't watch the shows. With Lord of the Rings, that's another thing that they could be doing. But like, I think having a vision in a guide of like, when I make this movie, the outcome I want the audience to have is this, because it's going to lead to this movie that we're going to make 2 years down the road, right?
But to my point was that along with that, with the vision, you have to have people who can execute it. And I think the problem that the MCU ran into was they were still interweaving their stories, but they were poorly executed. And so people didn't want to watch them. And so that's why you have to tie the two together, because you can have a plan and it can be a really bad plan, or it can be a really badly executed plan, And so it can't just be like I can say, hey, I can be the general of an army and say, this is what we're going to do. And all of my soldiers can run around in different directions and do 500 different things. It's like, and the enemy's going to win 10 times out of 10. So it's like, the point is you have to have people that can expertly execute the plan. And that's why the plan in some ways is less important than the execution, because if you can just make a good movie that stands on its own to get people back, like a Deadpool and Wolverine, then you can start to weave a story in there when you start to have competent people in there. But until the movies start being competent again, I don't think people are going to want to hang around for a longer storyline, just from my personal opinion.
Yep. Plans are worthless. Planning is everything.
Yeah. Well, involving like the whole, like, you got to watch like one thing to like understand, like, let's say like another movie coming out in Marvel, like if they're going to do something like that, those other shows have to be half decent, because like personally, I'm not going to watch it if it's not going to be good. Like I could care less if I have to watch it because I need to see what happens for the next.
So you can go on the internet and find out what happens.
Exactly. You can literally just go on YouTube, watch snippets, or watch like those little like, Easter eggs they have in them and just find it out for yourself. But like to go off of that though, I don't think that's if they do that again, they gotta have better writing. They gotta have better shows then to intrigue people to want to watch them then. And they're obviously not doing that, which, I mean, you guys say, obviously, the Deadpool movie is a step in the right direction, which I hope it is. And maybe they'll start doing better on, I guess, their shows and movies in general. But it just...
got to make people want to spend their time on it. That's the thing.
Do you know the Deadpool director directed all of the Night of the Museums?
Did not know
those
that.
are great. I love those
are great
movies.
Yeah.
Exactly.
He directed that. He directed The Atom Project. He directed Free Guy. I don't know if
Free Guy was good.
Free Guy was
really good. Yeah,
he directed The Internship.
That's a good one too. That's funny.
Cheaper by the Dozen, The Pink Panther, Real Steel, Big Fat Liar.
Something that I read about the Deadpool movie, because I got invited to go. I wasn't like looking forward to it and going opening night. I just got invited to go, so I just went. But I was reading on the way to the movie theater that Ryan Reynolds and the director had reached out to Hugh Jackman, wanting him to come back. We want you to do a Deadpool movie, whatever. And he had said no since Deadpool 2 was over, they had started looking, and he had said no from then on. And he said he was just driving one day, like driving long road trip or something. He said he just had to stop and get out and like write down everything that he was like thinking. He said he wrote for like 3 pages of if he were to come back, what he wanted to happen with Wolverine. So he said the first like 2.5 pages were just awful. And that last half page was like gold. Like, that's what he wanted. So he recorded a voice memo of himself, he's reading it, and sent it to Ryan Reynolds and the director. And they just happened to be working out at the same gym. So they like played it over the loudspeaker. And they were like, yep, that's what we're going to do. And that's what they presented to Kevin Feige. And that's what they did.
Well, what I heard about that story too is that the day that he sent that was the same day that Ryan Reynolds and them were bringing their last pitch to Kevin Feige for the movie. It was like the exact same day.
Yep.
So that's
and
a
he
pretty.
wasn't. He was about, and Kevin Feige went on record and said he didn't think it was going to happen
Yeah.
because they hadn't convinced him as of that day.